Hello, welcome to episode 257 of the Epic Film Challenge 2 as part of Asian Cinema Season 2, and we're talking about the 1948 film directed by Fei Mu, which is Spring in a Small Town. And this is widely considered to be one of the greatest Chinese films of all time, and I'm always trepidatious about those claims, but anything I've seen about this film online is always prefaced by one of the greatest Chinese films ever made, and is included in all these lists of the greatest movies of all time, and of course this book, 1,000 More Movies You Must See Before You Die. So there's a lot of kind of lofty praise going on to this film heading into it, which I don't think helps it that much. But then again, the whole book, 1,000 More Movies You Must See Before You Die, it's kind of in the title. The movie needs to be a film you must see before you die. Like, wow, I'm so glad I saw that before I popped off this mortal coil. So it's one of those things where it's kind of implied in the title of the book anyway. And I suppose that, the hundreds of films that I've already done already should all have that kind of lofty praise heading into it anyway. But, looking into it, it is a film that gets... think about A Fish Called Wanda. People just say that's a great comedy. They don't say, it's one of the great comedies of all time. Or maybe they do, I don't know. I'm just thinking of, other films that I've seen that haven't quite had that kind of praise, like one of the greatest Chinese films ever, one of the greatest American films ever. Anyway, I do think it hurts it somewhat for me, because I was expecting something better than the movie ended up being, but I do think that it's a great film. So the copy I saw was awful. It was really ropey quality. It was the best I could find. I know that there's a BFI DVD, which I just couldn't afford right now, and the restoration on it looks a lot better than the copy that I saw. But I really think this film would benefit from a really good Blu-ray release, and I would love to see that. And having now seen the film, I would want to own that, because I'd like to see it in better quality, and I do think it's a film worth owning. It's a very simple story, Spring in a Small Town. The title of the movie is very small and kind of intimate, and the movie itself is small and intimate. But the emotions within, the emotions that are encased within the characters in this film are anything, but small. There's very big emotions, but they're still intimate. There's a restraint to the emotions that the characters are going through in this film that I believe is its best strength. So we settle on this town. It's after the war, and the town has been ravaged by the war. We don't really even see the town. We just see the place in which our main characters live. It's the Dai family. And I'm assuming the kind of the people, the parents of this family are long gone, and we just have the young master, who kind of is now the man of the whole family, and he has a wife, and she is going through some struggles with her relationship with her husband, and her name is Yuan, and her husband's name is Lian. And Lian is ill. He's had TB, I think, or at least some sort of illness for many years following the war, and has been kind of, not bedridden, but, he can't really do much. And so she's kind of the one going out every day and buying his medicine and getting groceries and things like that. And she talks at the beginning of the film about how she goes to the old city wall, this broken down wall in the country that kind of, looks out to kind of the fields and the trees, and she'll walk home from the groceries every day and just stand on this old town wall and just look out and just get lost in thoughts, perhaps of another life. She's just not very happy with her relationship, I suppose. And she says that someday there's a lot of narration from Yuan. She's always talking about how her life is and the way she perceives it. Also, in certain instances, she talks about things that her character doesn't know. Things that are happening out of the realm of her kind of, area. We'll see a scene of two other characters, and she's talking about it and narrating it. So kind of her narration is very poetic in that sense, and it breaks the boundaries of reality. I'll leave that in for free. Breaks the boundaries of reality in that sense, because she can't know these things that happen unless she found out about them afterwards, but that would kind of not fit with the story, I don't think. So she's taking us through this and taking us through her predicament in this very focused time period, in which she's living in this broken down house. You get the sense that the house as it was before the war, before it was destroyed, would probably be very grand and almost palatial in a sense, because they live in kind of like the garden house, I think, and that in itself is quite lavish, and it looks very nice and so on. But there's still this sense of vacancy about everything. You don't see anyone else. It's just them in this house, and you have the servant, you have the husband, you have the wife, and you have the younger sister of Lian, and she's a schoolgirl, and she brings such a light to the story, because the wife, the husband, they're very downtrodden. They're not happy with each other, they can't communicate with each other, and the war's just it's ripped them of everything. But this young girl, the sister, she didn't really experience the war. And so she doesn't know what it's like to lose everything. And so she's light and bouncy and full of life. And I love that kind of contrast. It really works well. I think she performed her part very well. And I've read a lot of praise for the performance of the actress who plays Yuan. And I'm not sure if I fully agree. I think that I didn't feel much for her character. I feel so much for what the character is going through, but her performance wasn't registering to me too much. Whereas the husband, I thought, did a phenomenal job. The actor, I really felt for this guy who, and I was thinking that it would be in my own head that I don't buy that he's sick. I thought that it was my theory that this guy is just so rattled by what happened with the war, and he actually was enlisted and so on, that he's making himself ill. Whether he's doing that intentionally or whether it's subconscious, he believes himself to be ill, so therefore he is, and it's a mental thing, which is absolutely proven to be true, that people can make themselves physically sick with their head. And I was thinking that's my own theory on the film, right? But actually, later on in the film, his sister says, I think he's got mental problems, you know? So even the characters in the movie don't quite believe that he's sick, which is really interestingly brought into things when the fifth character of the movie comes in. There's only 5 characters in the film: the servant of the house, the husband, the wife, the sister, and then the visitor. And I forget his exact name, so I won't even try to remember it or butcher it. But the visitor comes along, and he's an old friend of Leanne's, and he's like, it's great to see you. And you see this man who's so like world weary, and things aren't going well with his wife. He doesn't know what to do. He can't communicate. And his old friend from before the war comes, and he lights up. It breathes a new sense of life into this character, and you see that in the performance. And I loved that. It was really enjoyable. But then we learn that the visitor was also a previous partner of Yuan. So, so you have this guy, it's like this love triangle, and the husband and the wife don't know that the other one had a previous prior relationship with this man. In the husband's term, a friendship; in the wife's term, a previous romantic relationship. And the whole idea is that the visitor was Yuan's true love. That was that was the man she was going to be with, and the war changed all that. And so her relationship with Lian actually was one of those things out of necessity. So it wasn't really a marriage born out of love, I would say. So it's a very tragic story in that sense. And you get a feel that they're trying to make the best of things. And, you can tell that she and the visitor, she wants to kind of be with him. And she goes and visits him at night and things, and there's such a tension there, And I think the actor who played the visitor was very good too. I guess my only thing was just her performance didn't quite register with me, and it might even be because the copy of the film was so bad that I wasn't really getting to see all the intricate details of her facial expressions, perhaps. And so maybe I should buy even just the DVD, just to see it in better quality, and maybe reassess that down the line, because she was the main thing that was holding me off about the film. And it's a very slow-paced film. It takes its time. It's a meditative. It's like a very slow, methodical kind of story that doesn't really rush anything. And there's lots of just there's a lot of intrigue to it, and I really enjoyed that. And I really thought the character of Lian was actually the most interesting, because he's a guy who's struggling with his relationship with his wife, struggling with his lack to communicate with her, and then this guy comes in, changes everything, and breathes a new life into this whole family. And, he's got to wrestle with the fact that it's obvious that there's something between his wife and his former, his best friend, who he hasn't seen in so long, and it's so great to see him again, but now he's kind of threatening the structure of his marriage. But then, is the structure of his marriage anything to begin with? And maybe is it time to let go? And I loved how you don't really, I don't know, because you don't get the inner monologue of Lian, you get it from Yuan's perspective, and yet I was most interested in his predicament, because I could tell that he had such a kind soul, and it really, it's almost moving me thinking about it, because there is a moment in the film where it seems as if he's leading into telling his wife, I think you'd be happy with him, and that's not going to be the best for me, but I think that's going to be the best for you, and, that's what I want. And she kind of cuts him off before he gets to that, but it felt like that's what he was getting at. And so the film kind of dangles that carrot in front of you, then fucking pulls it away. And it's really heartbreaking, but I felt the humanity in him so much. And I love the sister character. So again, I just need to reassess the film, I think, and maybe try and see it from Yuen's perspective more. And I did as a character. It was just a performance that was, I suppose it's a choice that she's so blank a lot of the times. It's this woman who's kind of, her personality's been stripped away because she's been, living in limbo almost with Leanne. And there is a moment at the beginning when she says in her voiceover, like, sometimes me and my husband won't even say anything to each other when I give him his medication. But then he speaks to her and she's almost taken aback by this. And they have this conversation and he's talking about how he is and stuff. And she's kind of just standoffish. She doesn't accept it. There's such a distance between them. And then he throws down his medication or something. And the way he does it is really stagey. And I didn't really buy it as like it didn't feel real to me. And so at the beginning of the film, I thought, I'm not going to buy any of this. But, after that, I really, really dug into, especially his performance and his character. And there's a really good shot of him sitting down in the ruins of the what used to be the house. And the camera comes in through the bricks and there's a hole. And we go in through the hole to see him. And there's subtle camera things like that. Nothing too flashy, but a lot of fade-ins and fade-outs and so on. But I really did enjoy this film. I think it's a really damn good film. Is it a film you should see before you die? It's a tough one. It's a really tricky one. I would say yes, because I don't think there's many Chinese films in the book. Certainly not compared to at least Japanese films. I mean, Japanese, you got lots of Kurosawa, Mizoguchi, there's loads of things in there Japanese-wise. But as far as Chinese movies, I haven't really... Because I have made a list. I've made a list of like all the Asian films in the book. And so I'm not sure if there's that many Chinese films represented. So I think for that reason, it probably is important for it to be in the book and important to be something that people should see. Because the book is just pushing me to see films I wouldn't ordinarily see. So is it a film you should see before you die? Probably not for me as a film, but I think there is I feel like I'm going to get more of this when I see it again in better quality. There is a richness there that I think a lot of films don't have, and so I'm going to say yes, it is a film you should see before you die, to broaden your scope of world cinema, to see more Chinese films. And this is from like the 40s, and I don't know, I don't see much talk about films from China from this period, and so I do think in that sense it has a historical importance. It's dealing with the war fairly soon after the war and the impact of war. I mean, this is, in a sense, I feel like this is a war movie. There's nothing to do with the war as far as the immediate, but it's the aftermath of it and the way that people are trying to put together their broken lives and they can't quite do it. And her narration is interesting to me, how she's talking about things that she isn't really a part of, and I don't know, maybe I need to read into the film more and kind of figure out what that's really trying to say or mean. But and I really like the performance of the visitor as well, even the servant, who's not in the film very much, but I liked him, so it's a good cast. I just need to get more of a read on her performance, I think, Yuan, and reassess the film. So I might do like a reassessed video down the line, but for now I think it probably is a film you should see before you die because of those reasons. As a film itself, it certainly didn't wow me as much as some of the other films in the book, for sure. But I really was, despite myself, because it is a very slow-moving story, I was really drawn in to this story and to I want to say these characters, but really it was this character of the husband who at the beginning I thought was going to be very one-dimensional and just standoffish and, I don't like my wife and whatever. And I really felt like they were setting him up to be kind of petulant. And there's such, I think he's the standout of the show to me. There's something about that character of Leanne that just really grabbed me, and the fact that they didn't give you his full resolution, I think, of kind of, spilling his guts out there. And there's a lot more to it that I'm not going into because I don't want to spoil anything, but so I just wanted to jump in here very quickly and add something, because I'm editing the video and I realized there were a couple of things I didn't touch on that I think I should have, and so I'm just going to throw them in here very quickly before we round off this review of Spring in a Small Town. And the main one really is the young sister, about 16 years old, and she actually develops a little bit of a crush for the visitor. And so it kind of turns into a little bit of a love quadrangle than a love triangle. And it's even brought up the idea that she could, in fact, marry the visitor at some point. And, a character at one point says, well, she's 16, but, maybe in a few years. And so I was a little bit worried that it was going to veer off into this kind of uncomfortable territory with her age and everything. But it was very tastefully done and was just like another kind of bump in the road between these characters and the interplay. And so I was glad that it didn't become too big of a plot point for the rest of the film, because it really is focusing on those three main characters, I think. And while the sister brings a lot of light into the film, as I said, I'm glad that her kind of romantic feelings for this visitor didn't develop further than just, kind of a young crush, so to speak. And also the use of fades and dissolves in the film is really interesting. And again, I think seeing the film in better quality would make me view it, differently, and also maybe appreciate some of those dissolves a little bit more, because there's definitely an intentional style and a mood and a rhythm to the way that the film is edited. But given the really poor kind of quality of the transfer that I saw of the film, it was kind of difficult to get a read on that. So it is a film that the more I think about it, that these scenes jump out at me, scenes that I won't spoil for you, because I think there's some really wonderful little moments throughout the entire film. So yeah, thinking about it now, after I kind of talked about it in the immediate, I'm kind of really reflecting more positively on it. So as I'm actually editing this video, I see that I can see myself on the computer screen being very tentative about saying, well, is it a film you should see before you die? And I think the fact that it really has stuck in my mind, and the fact that I'm still thinking about it, and that the fact that I'm editing the review and thinking, oh, there's more things I wanted to talk about and mention, I think I'm on more of a firm yes at this point in time. But anyway, I'll leave this kind of amendment, and we'll jump on to the tail end of the video. Yeah, it's really, really intriguing stuff. Anyway, I'll leave it there, so thank you for watching. Spring in a Small Town is a tentative yes from me, I think, and it's more to do with the historical importance of it, but also I think it is a very, very good film. I think it's a much better film than many of the other films that have been in the book that I've reviewed already, like a film like Wavelength, or even Salo. This wipes the floor with those films because it has a story, it has characters, and I know some people like films that don't have story or characters, but I'll take a film like this any day of the week, 5 times on Sunday, over a film that doesn't have story, doesn't have characters, doesn't have something to relate to grab onto, and this film did have that. And I like the fact that I'm not quite sure about her. I like the fact that I want to watch this film again. I want to get more out of it, and I do feel like repeat viewings are that something's gonna be gleaned from that. I think I really do believe that. And there's something about that old city wall location, because the characters often visit this city wall and meet me by the city wall, make an excuse so we can talk. And there's all these things that are kind of unsaid. There's these things that are said, but things bubbling under the surface. And this old city wall is one of the locations in which these things happen. And it's just a really suitable, like it shows you what's happened to these people and this place by this kind of the rubble of the bricks along this, like this kind of tall, kind of sheer drop wall of the town. I mean, you don't see any of the town as well, so it just feels like it's again so vacant and tragic. And so yeah, and I think this is a film you should see before you die. So I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.